All right, let's get right into it. There's a question that seems to be on everyone's mind these days. Who actually owns OpenAI? And let me tell you, the answer is way more complicated and honestly way more interesting than you'd probably guess. So yeah, who owns OpenAI? It seems like a simple question, right? I mean, this company is literally changing the world. But it turns out you can't just point to one person or one company and say, that's the owner. It's, well, it's just not that simple. See, the whole thing hinges on what you actually mean by the word own. It's not a straightforward thing here. To really get a grip on OpenAI's structure, we've got to break that concept down first. So let's do that. Okay, so what does own even mean in this context? Let's dive in. Because once we break ownership down into a couple of key parts, this whole confusing structure starts to make a lot more sense. It's really the key to the whole puzzle. So we can think about this in three different ways. First, you've got governance control. Basically, who's steering the ship? Who makes the big decisions? Then there's equity ownership. That's the money side. Who gets rich if the company does well? And finally, you have contractual rights, special deals and partnerships. Now, for almost any other company you can think of, these three things all point to the same group of people. But with OpenAI, well, that's where things get really different. They've been split up on purpose. All right, let's zero in on the two big ones, control versus equity. Understanding the difference between who's in charge and who gets the money is, well, it's everything when it comes to OpenAI. Okay, so here's a good way to picture it. Think of governance control as the steering wheel. It decides where the car is going. But equity ownership, that's the key to the engine. It's what gives it the financial gas. And here's the kicker. OpenAI was built from the ground up to keep the person with the steering wheel separate from the person with the key. Why? Well, it all goes back to this core fear that if one group had both, the drive for profit might eventually run right over the mission to build safe AI for everyone. So who holds the equity? Let's tackle the money question first. If we follow the cash, who actually owns a financial piece of this thing? So if you look at the numbers OpenAI has shared, the equity pie is basically sliced up three ways. And what's really interesting is that there's no single person or group with a majority stake. It's more like a potluck dinner where three very different groups brought a dish. So the biggest piece of that pie, almost half, at 47%, is held by a mix of employees, both current and past, and other investors. And that makes sense, right? This is how they get the best minds in the world to work for them and raise the insane amounts of money you need to even be in this game. Pretty standard stuff for a big tech company. And then you've got the piece everyone's always asking about, Microsoft. They're in for about 27%. Now, don't get me wrong, that is a huge chunk of equity, and they are an absolutely critical partner. But, and you got to remember this, it is not a controlling stake. They don't own the majority. Okay, so if the money is all split up, that leads us to the real question, doesn't it? Who holds the power? Who's actually driving this thing? And this, right here, is the most important part, and it comes straight from OpenAI's own governance documents. The ultimate power, we're talking the power to appoint the entire board, to fire directors, all of it. That power belongs to one entity, the nonprofit OpenAI Foundation. Remember that steering wheel we talked about? This is it. The foundation holds it. Maybe the best way to think about this whole thing is like a ship. Microsoft is an incredibly important, super influential passenger in first class. They definitely have a lot of input on the voyage. But the foundation wears the captain's badge. They have the final say and can steer the ship wherever they believe it needs to go. So you're probably thinking, this whole setup is weird. And you're right. This is a company built differently. And it's not some accident of history. This structure was designed this way from the very beginning for a very specific, very ambitious reason. So the part of OpenAI that actually makes products and money is something called a public benefit corporation, or a PBC. Now, what the heck is that? Well, it's a special kind of for-profit company that's legally required to do two things at once. Make money for its shareholders, yes, but also work towards a specific public mission. And in OpenAI's case, that mission is their grand goal of making sure AI benefits all of humanity. And that brings us to their whole hybrid model. It's a fascinating setup. You've got the nonprofit foundation acting as mission control, right? Its whole job is to guard that original vision. Then you have the for-profit PBC, which is the capital engine. It's what lets them raise billions of dollars and hire the best people to compete with giants like Google. The whole point of this design is to create this built-in tension, a constant balancing act between their lofty mission and the cold, hard pressures of the market. So after all that, Who really owns OpenAI? Let's pull all these threads together and finally answer that question. Okay, let's break it down one last time, looking at it from every angle. If you're talking about governance control, who's in charge, the answer is the OpenAI Foundation. They hold the ultimate power. If you're talking about equity ownership, who gets the money? It's shared. You've got employees and investors, Microsoft, and even the foundation itself. And then if you look at the legal structure, it's a public benefit corporation, a hybrid built to chase both profit and emission. So the simplest, most accurate way to say it is this. There is no single owner. It's a split verdict. The foundation has the power, but the financial ownership is spread out. And that's really the whole story. And really, that leaves us with a huge question, doesn't it? This whole thing, this weird, complicated structure, it's a massive, high-stakes experiment. So what's it going to be? Is this the new model for how we build companies that control incredibly powerful technology? Or are we all just watching a cautionary tale unfold in real time? I guess we're all about to find out.